Hey, welcome to Matrix Live. The date today is the 16th of July, but I'm not sure when this is going to go out. So I'm just going to say hello to Christian.
Hello.
Hey, you're a Matrix developer, and actually you've been working for what is now Element for some time, 4 months, I think.
Yes, that's correct.
Cool. I met you on the floor at FOSDEM 2020, in which you were Halfshot and I were having lunch or something, and you were thrust in front of us and said, "I'm going to interview with you now," or something to that effect. Can you remember that?
Yeah, I think the full story was the day before on Saturday. I met Matthew on
Okay.
also in the same like building K
Mm-hmm.
in the upper floor where all of the stands are, and he was also retreating to the same place for finishing up some slides.
Yeah, that's right. For his
Uh,
presentation the next day.
Right. And I was looking for a new job at the time and spoke to him about it, but he redirected me to Hofshot, and Hofshot then said, "Yeah, we can do like an interview tomorrow or something like that." Or like, and yeah, that's how I ended up on the floor there with a quick interview at FOSDEM.
That was a pretty nice introduction. Um, but that said, you've been like involved-ish with Matrix. You've been doing stuff for a while though now, for a few years.
For roughly 3 years. As the first time I heard about Matrix, or Vector as it was called at the time, I think, was FOSDEM 2017, my first FOSDEM.
Right. Okay. Yeah. And you'd have been
It
very
was in the
young then.
same.
How old? You'd have been like 17 yourself, I think.
No, no. I think I was in 23 or
Okay.
24. Um, so it was in the room after I think Nextcloud or like yeah, and because it was so hard to switch rooms, I just stayed in the
Yeah.
self-hosted room all day, and then all of a sudden Matrix came up, and it was back then talking. The talk was still about the identity servers,
Hmm.
but there was also some talk about the protocol, and I was always interested in chatbots and had been programming my own XMPP chatbot at the time. But afterwards, to FOSDEM 2017, I then looked up Matrix and got more and more involved with the protocol.
So let's rewind. What do you do for Element? You started. I mean, you were talking to Halfshot, which means that I guess you started out with bridges.
Yes. The initial idea had been bridges. By now, that has been a little bit shifted towards the core product of Element Matrix services.
Right. Okay.
So making bridges like the Slack bridge and other authentications for your home server available through our UI.
So Element Matrix Services is what used to be modular. So this is the
Yes.
hosted home service product. Yeah. I mean, I
Right.
know it's gonna. By the time people see this, it's still gonna be fresh. The brand change. So, but yeah. So you're working on doing integrations, particularly bridges for the core product of modular, of which is now Element Matrix Services. So
Yes.
you worked on the Slack bridge, the IRC bridge. What else have you done? That's the main things, I guess.
Those have been the main focus, and then the authentication methods for Synapse, our home server. So there is like OpenID, SAML2, and whatnot, like
Okay.
different authentication services you can use to sign in to your home server.
So this is in order to enable SSO like features for clients or for customers. Right. Okay. Cool.
Yes.
Cool. And have any of those been, you built it for the first time for this particular customer? Because I always think that that's one of the most exciting things.
No, they were all for the general public.
Yeah.
We had a couple of customers on SAML 2 before, but most of these integrations have been now available for the first time.
Right.
And not for any particular customer, but for all of them.
Okay, so you're just adding it to the offering rather than adding it by request.
Yes.
Cool. And this is going to be difficult. What do you prefer? Do you prefer working for Bridges directly, or do you like working for the hosted home server product?
The hosted home server product is a little bit easier to get started with because it's usually, it has a good description of what Rick, my supervisor, wants. He usually has a good description of that, while the bridges are a lot more flexible in what could be and what is needed. Also, it's a huge responsibility to do any change at all for the IRC bridge, where we have about 25,000 users connected at any time. So
yeah. I mean, especially when there's scant staging because there is only the major connections. I mean, of course, it's all tested, but there is only a single rollout process, really, particularly for Freenode. Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I guess the other thing is you talked about the definition of the role. The business needs of the hosted home server product go a very long way in defining exactly what is needed, exactly what you need to implement. Whereas the freedom that comes with working on the bridges can perhaps be a bit overwhelming because you could do any number of things to improve them given enough time and resources.
Yeah, so I hope that over time, Hafshot will get me more and more accustomed to all of the work that needs to be done on the bridges, especially with upcoming bridges.
Upcoming bridges? Are you going to accidentally give the game away? What's the next project for you then?
No, there.
Nothing specific, right?
Nothing specific, but Hafshot has mentioned a couple of times that he would like more time on the Bifrost bridge, which bridges to XMPP.
Yeah. That would be great. Yeah, that would be really good to have more connections there. I mean, especially in terms of getting it commercialized and ready in the way that the IRC and Slack bridges are. It would be, that would be awesome. Cool. So yes. I'm going to assume then that you're having a pretty good time in your 4 months at Element, which used to be New Vector. And where are you? You're in Berlin, right?
Yes.
So what else then? Let's go back to your chatbot, because you've got some quite strong opinions about chatbots and how they should be implemented and how they should be fixing the world.
Yeah, like for more than a decade, I was interested in chatbots and artificial intelligence, especially when talking to computers and how they have kind of this power of being able to remember anything within milliseconds, being able to query information from other places via the internet.
So it's not sort of autonomous agents is the way you approach it is that way. Okay, that's cool. No, there's different ways, but that's your view.
And it can help you be an assistant and whatnot. And during this time, I've also seen the rise of commercial virtual assistants, like we have with Home Assistants now. And also one thing that I think will become more and more important, bots as a negotiator. So for example, I think it was Google introducing these calls for you. So you reserve a time at your hairdresser and they will call the hairdresser with.
Right, I see.
With their artificial intelligence, their artificial intelligence will call the hairdresser. And that's some kind of negotiation that your bot can do outside of your own time, which might become important, especially if maybe both of the sides will be negotiated by bots.
Hmm. So, I mean, you can imagine a world where that gets enhanced, and rather than asking for a time, you give it a range of times, or even just when your calendar is free, and then the bot does its best with the results from there. I've actually seen
Yeah.
some startups in the UK working on a similar concept, but I mean, not from a chatbot point of view. So that's cool. So, what are your specific projects?
They are not as advanced as I was just dreaming up what could be possible. So
Yeah.
for now, it has been mainly notifications for myself when something changes. In one of my other projects, I'm involved in the OpenStreetMap community and usually monitor my home area with some kind of alert. And so my chatbot downloads the map, looks for changes that would interest me, and pings me about them.
Whoa, so hold on. So you have to diff it yourself. They don't provide a
Yeah,
feed.
I maybe they do provide a feed, but I like to diff it myself because
Okay.
it's like some very specific changes that I'm looking for.
Okay, understood. Cool. That I mean, that just seems a lot of work up front. Was my thought. But okay, cool.
It's it's more simple than you might think.
Oh, really? Oh, okay. Well, maybe not. An OpenStreetMap. I've looked at their community stuff. Some of their groups are on Matrix actually, but I think a lot of them are on Slack and other things. But
Yeah,
it's
most
all
of the
regional,
communities.
right? It's all hyper localized with them. Okay.
Yes. Yeah, you usually have to talk to your own community to make bigger changes. They're also very much still relying on their wiki.
Yeah.
So whenever you have a bigger project, you're expected to have a wiki page about it.
Yeah. I mean, it makes sense. They need to be super accessible, and they need to go quite low tech if they want to include a lot of people. So yeah, I can see that. But yeah, it'd be cool to have more of those guys on Matrix, just because then, well, you'd get all the benefits. You wouldn't have to use multiple platforms to get anything done. So
Yes.
and what's all this I've seen about the Mozilla IoT? Does that tie in to your to your thoughts on chatbots, or is that an unrelated matter?
That's mainly to bridge more things to the protocol, because the Mozilla IoT Gateway, it's basically having your own hub for IoT on a Raspberry Pi on your own hardware,
Yeah, yeah.
but having the benefit of remote controlling all of that, or just controlling it from your own home.
Mm-hmm.
And whenever something changes, you might want to get an alert again about alerting when something changes. You can do that with a browser alert. They have that. But one thing that I found to be particularly interesting is can I get an alert inside of Matrix?
Yeah, yeah,
And
yeah.
that's why I programmed an adapter, which is like an add-on to this gateway, and it will, provided that you give it an account, it will use that account to ping you.
So right now it's basically one way though. The data comes. It's only alerts basically.
Yes, it's
Cool.
only alerts at the
But in
moment.
principle, it could be multi-way. No, you could say turn your
Yes.
lights on and off. Yeah. Okay. Cool.
Yeah.
Yeah. All right. Cool.
And there is some kind of like language parsing inside of the gateway,
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
but I don't know how to access that yet.
Okay.
I'll have to talk to
That's
project.
really neat, because I mean I know the Mozilla they're working really hard to replicate a lot of the stuff that's going on commercially. I mean, things like the Common Voice project are explicitly saying that this is what we need to do. We need to keep this open source. So yeah, I'm all for that project, just because I actually have a Web Things, it used to be called Web Things, running at the moment. But unfortunately, because it took so much setup in those days, I basically don't use it. I run everything through Philips, which I know is not the correct attitude, but I also need it to work. I need my lights to come on and off. But yeah, I'm personally really invested in seeing this adapter work, because I would love to see the results run through Matrix.
I had the gateway now for 2 years, and it has been working well for me.
I'm sure, yeah.
And yeah, I talked about it on like 2 conferences now, including that FOSDEM that we met at.
Yeah.
And yeah, over time, I built it more and more for the infrastructure. And yeah, now bringing it back to Matrix was kind of like.
I mean, what a fun thing then. How many day jobs do you get to, you've basically introduced your part-time or hobbyist project, and it overlaps 100% with your day job. That's a lot of luck, actually. Cool. All right, there's one more topic that we discussed previously, which was you obviously are quite opinionated about chatbots, but you have concerns about the way that other people see them, and in particular the way that they are marketed, and how that causes possibly less technical people to feel about it. Did you want to comment on that?
Yeah, so I've programmed a couple of chatbots and a couple of social media bots, like from Mastodon. And usually when I show them off to my friends and family, they are hesitant about this because even when I clearly see them as a bot, some program, it's not always apparent to friends and family, because they perceive those platforms, those instant messaging and those social media platforms as something where humans interact.
Right.
And not necessarily bots, like automated programs.
So they're instantly uncomfortable with the whole idea of a robot taking the... It's not something you've done. Okay. Do you have any insight into why they feel that way?
I would assume because of the media about manipulating people, manipulating elections. That will be like whenever chatbot, I would say assistant is even more like an accepted term, but bot is currently has a very negative connotation.
Okay. So what should we do about that? Is it just a question of branding and using the correct vocabulary? I mean, there's a language question here as well. Obviously, you're often speaking in German. I don't know whether that makes a difference to the way people perceive it.
Probably. Yeah, the chatbots are all in English, but when I show it off to my German friends, it's like, oh yeah, what is this doing?
It's just speculation. I don't know whether the language makes any difference.
Probably. I never thought about that. Good point. I think they become more accustomed to the idea of an assistant if they actually feel like they have any control over it, especially how it deals with data. That it doesn't send off any data, and that you can somehow see that it's working. For example, with virtual assistants, it's like, does it still work if the internet is down? If not, then okay, it apparently requires internet for everything, which means it's sending off everything to another server. And I feel very much exposed in my own privacy, as well, when I use a chatbot that's under the control of somebody else, like somebody else programmed it. I'm immediately cautious about what is it doing.
Right. So there's a general theme here around accountability and explainability. And I think explainability is going to become a huge part of AI, but also human, what do they say, computer assisted work, where it doesn't desperately matter what the result is, but you do need to be able to understand what the computer, how the algorithm decided that. So yeah, that's a huge thing. I mean, is there some way that chatbots can do better on that front? So maybe you could use, just thinking in Matrix terms, you could use the m.notice message type to say, intermediate steps, like, oh, I'm querying this, I'm recording data, and I believe that this is the state of the world, or, make some assertion to the user. I don't know.
That would be awesome. I think that would already be kind of like the golden.
But then it comes into UX questions, right?
Yes.
That's a load of noise that most users don't want to see. You're effectively turning debugging on.
Right. I think the first step, and for example, Mastodon did this, they have now an icon for, oh, this is a bot.
Yeah.
And everybody can flag their account as, yeah, this is a bot account.
Yeah.
Which is awesome, and immediately gives you some visibility over
Yeah, I mean,
who's
I'd love to
actually
see that. I'd love to see that per post, because if a bot is puppeting, say, or I don't know, just to reassure the user. But maybe that's the wrong attitude anyway. Maybe an account on Mastodon should either be a bot or a human, and you shouldn't be mixing.
Technically, it is per post, as each post includes your avatar, and that will also have the small note of this is a bot.
I see. Cool. I feel like we've unpacked a lot. We've been rambling. So is there anything else you wanted to add? We've talked about your initiation into Elements. We've talked about your experience with Matrix and your thoughts on chatbots. Is there anything else you wanted to say?
Right now, not really. If the people listening to this are developers, please be responsible with bots, because I still want to have a lot of fun with them, and they're currently perceived as something negative, and I want to turn it around as being something positive that actually helps people in the way they expect.
Right. Great. So responsible chatbot development is the message. Brilliant. Yes. Christian, thank you very much. And let's say thanks, Matrix Live. Goodbye.
Thanks, Ben.
Bye.